I am now honored to introduce you to the first of our closing keynote speakers, the Honorable Minister Paula Ingabire, Minister of Information and Communications Technology and Innovation for the Republic of Rwanda. Before her current appointment, Minister Ingabire served as the head of ICT at the Rwanda Development Board, where she was the head of the Kigali Innovation City Initiative. Minister Ingabire is part of Girls in ICT Rwanda and has also been at the helm of Transform Africa, a platform that brings together innovators and policymakers across Africa to shape the continent's digital transformation agenda. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming the Honorable Minister Paula Ingabire.
Thank you, Danielle, and thanks to everyone. I think it's been quite some exciting conversations that have happened throughout this morning. And I know we have many people participating from different time zones. So I will save myself from either saying good morning or good afternoon, given that we're in different time zones. But let me start off by recognizing the fellow ministers who have been part of this USTDA Access Africa workshop, Minister Stella and Minister Issa Ali, as well as Eno Ebong, the acting director of the US Trade and Development Agency. We did hear from Flory, the President and Chief Executive Officer of Corporate Council of Africa, as well as the Regional Director for Sub-Saharan Africa, USTDA, Heather, and other guests and participants, all protocols observed. I'm trying to shorten the, recognizing everyone because I know I'm coming towards the end of very exciting conversations, and I'd like to keep my remarks short. But greetings from Kigali. I trust that you are all keeping safe and staying hopeful during these times. I'm very pleased to be joining you today for the USTDA Africa workshop, listening in on various conversations this morning. The time couldn't be right to move away from simply sharing and exchanging ideas and opportunities, but rather now thinking about how we can engage in meaningful partnerships that will unlock the same opportunities that we've discussed in the different panels, but also close the gaps that were quite well articulated in the earlier conversations. While the COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted every single aspect of our lives, we can say with some level of certainty that the rise of the digital economy has been the silver lining of the pandemic. But also this has come obviously with the bitter reality of the widening gap when it comes to access to digital infrastructure for most economies, especially on the African continent, that we are facing and are grappling with today. While these gaps aren't unique to Africa, we have seen that a big percentage of our population, especially a big percentage of our school-going kids, have experienced learning losses over the past 18 months. We've seen many SMEs that are closing shop. Access to critical healthcare services has been challenging. Even while remote working is the norm today, we still know that there are many organizations that still cannot afford to unlock this opportunity for many of their workforce. But before we talk about challenges today and the opportunities for the future, whether it's opportunities that come after this pandemic for partnerships, but also opportunities for recovery, let me share a bit on what Rwanda's digital transformation journey has been like, which honestly, if it wasn't for the, for the investments that we made 20 years ago, for the leadership that really was very visionary led by our president to think about ICT being a critical, enabler for growth, we probably, with this pandemic, would be really experiencing, far worse outcomes, and the journey to recovery would be a long and painful one. But obviously, as a landlocked country with limited natural resources, that was coming out of the tragedy, which was, the genocide against the Tutsis, which really horrendously destroyed not only, the human resources that, we relied on for growth of our country, but also when you look at some of the social and cultural structures, but also physical infrastructure, the potential for technology and innovation to revive and advance our socioeconomic development was evident to the leadership. We started off by creating and enabling a policy and regulatory environment, but also investing in digital infrastructure was an obvious choice for a country that was betting big on ICT as a key driver for socioeconomic development. But this also meant that we had to explore various models from public investment, which was limited, as you can imagine, to public-private partnerships put in place to put in place the right foundation digital infrastructure that was required for our country's transformation into a digital economy. We strategically invested together with many partners, and including the World Bank, Korea Telecom, in laying out secure and reliable digital infrastructure across the country to ensure that all our citizens, when provided with the necessary tools, will and can have good connectivity. Today, we've rolled out fiber optic backbone network connecting all our districts and border points. And this has afforded us 98% of 3G population coverage, about 97% of 4G LTE coverage. We have, and it's the premise of this kind of infrastructure that we've been able to put in place what we've called the One Government Network, a project that increases broadband access or last mile connectivity, connecting most of the public institutions from schools, health facilities, the local administrative offices that are providing services to the citizens. But when we talk about infrastructure, we've also invested in data center infrastructure. We've also seen private sector invest in data center infrastructure. It doesn't mean that we've closed the gaps. We still need more investment in data centers that will even drive affordability for many of our SMEs or startups that are building very commendable innovative solutions that are really transforming our economy. But we also had to think about cybersecurity infrastructure in order to safeguard some of these information and infrastructure assets that we're all investing in. Second, we had to look at content. With the foundational infrastructure in place, we had to focus on investments around increasing digital services. From a centralized one-stop platform where almost all government services are provided to an integrated case management system. You can imagine coming out of the genocide against the Tutsis, thinking about justice for all, equitable justice. We had to also make sure we have systems in place that could support this kind of work that we're embarking on. But also knowing that the biggest percentage of our population is involved in agriculture, we had to think about what tools, what platforms do we put in place to unlock agricultural productivity, to create value for the farmer as they also contribute to their own welfare, but also to food security for the country. E-procurement system, but I wouldn't, because I want to keep my remarks very short, I probably won't be able to go through all of this, but this was really the intention of saying we have the infrastructure in place. We've pretty much tried to address the challenge around access, but we should also be thinking about adoption. And so thinking about these services that would drive demand, that would drive uptake and adoption was really critical. The third aspect of our digital transformation journey was around equipping citizens with the necessary digital literacy skills. This was a critical pillar for our digital transformation agenda. We've rolled out the Digital Ambassadors Program that employs youth across different parts of the country, specific with a very special focus on rural and remote areas where we are training our citizens with the basic digital literacy skills that allow them the opportunity to self-serve as they go to these platforms that we've put out for them to access the different services, to access information, to access opportunities. And so even giving them the very basic digital literacy to really make use of this infrastructure and platforms was very critical. Last but not least has been a key challenge, which I know some panels, I was just attending the panel on 5G where they did talk extensively about devices. But I think this is a challenge that faces many countries, which is really how do we unlock ownership of smart devices? And this, we are looking at different schemes from affordable financing schemes all the way to thinking about bundled services that make smart devices easily accessible for our citizens. So now coming back to today and the current context of COVID-19 pandemic, I believe even with the commendable progress that we've registered, the journey ahead of connecting everyone, leaving no one behind and building back better is still long. But it can be shortened with the right partnerships. And I believe a platform such as the USTDA Access Africa program is one where we can start to forge meaningful partnerships that are really going to close on these gaps that we have all outlined. And most importantly, I believe for countries that are still lagging behind, these same partnerships can enable leapfrogging. If Rwanda, it has taken us, let's say, 15 years to be where we are, for another country that probably isn't where we are, doesn't need to take another 15 years. So we need to be able to share these experiences in a way that we shorten this and allow them to leapfrog some of these development stages. And so while additional investments are needed to close the infrastructure gaps and deliver affordable, secure, and reliable last mile connectivity solution, we have to also put emphasis on building local capacity to build the right content that will unlock demand and uptake, local content in the local language. We have to encourage business-to-business partnerships that allow for best practices, global solutions to be applied to the local context in a meaningful way. And that's why I believe this platform that USTDA has afforded all of us, policymakers and industry, is a good way to start. But we also live in a world where data is increasingly valuable in terms of building and creating relevant solutions for different demographics. This is very important, as a one-size-fits-all approach to infrastructure rollout has not necessarily been successful across the board, and certainly won't be any different if we're to address challenges around affordability of devices, affordability of services, as well as the much-needed skilling that we need for our population and workforce. And just to emphasize my point, I wanted to share an example. As we were going through, tackling and responding to COVID-19 in our country, one of the silver linings or the successes that we saw around digital transformation was the uptake of digital financial transactions, which in 1 month from the very first day we had the first case, grew fourfold, and by 3 months down the road we had 10 times growth in terms of how citizens were using digital financial platforms, whether it's mobile money, whether it was cards, to really transact in their day-to-day lives. But what we also saw was that while that growth was very commendable and we want to sustain it even going forward, even post the pandemic, we also realized that we're going to have very targeted interventions that are unique to farmers in agriculture on how we can unlock both financial literacy and digital literacy, which drives financial inclusion, which will be different from how we'll do it for the retail or the tourism sectors. And so that's why I believe in everything that we're doing, we have a very interesting or a good opportunity that we have all this data that will allow us to drill down and have relevant solutions to how we close on these gaps. So today, as I share about Rwanda's vision and our great ambitions of becoming a high-income country by 2050, all of this is going to be backed by investments in becoming a knowledge-intensive economy, but also as we position ourselves as a Pan-African hub that will capitalize on ongoing continental integration. We believe we can't develop as an island. And so it's important that this integration is happening. It's important that with all the different countries, we're working together so that our populations are growing and benefiting equitably when it comes to the digital economy. But to become a knowledge-based economy, human capital development is central to our ambition and vision. With over 70% of the population under the age of 30, our ambition to become a Pan-African hub for innovation presents the potential to provide a large reservoir of entrepreneurs, innovators, and skilled employees. And one of the things that I wanted to share with you is as we position ourselves to be a Pan-African hub for innovation, we've also, this is anchored around being a proof of concept destination for innovative companies and startups to launch, test, and scale. Our strategy is to provide the right policy framework, the necessary infrastructure, and the soft enablers needed for startups to pilot in a controlled environment before supporting their ambitions to grow across the continent and beyond the borders. We've already witnessed gratifying outcomes with the expansion of Zipline, a medical supplies drones delivery company that piloted in Rwanda and is now present in Ghana and the US, its home country as of this year. And this is just one example, but we have many of those where they started off as a proof of concept because they're addressing challenges that are not just unique to Rwanda, but challenges across the board. So they're able to scale beyond the proof of concept. And this proof of concept is mainly driven under the Kigali Innovation City, a flagship project to create an ecosystem centered around high-tech innovation and talent development to accelerate Rwanda's transition to a knowledge-based economy. Kigali Innovation City is a Pan-African focused technology and innovation mixed-use development located in the capital city of Kigali. We are actually today hosting the Carnegie Mellon University. For some of you who are attending this workshop, you may already know of it. We have the Africa Institute for Mathematical Sciences, and many of these that are really going to create the necessary talent to really nurture this innovations ecosystem. But while I'm speaking about Kigali Innovation City, let me also take this opportunity to thank USTDA for accepting to be part of our digital transformation journey by supporting the feasibility study of a smart city for Kigali Innovation City. And the idea for us is that beyond Kigali Innovation City, some of the success that we'll start to see within the Kigali Innovation City can be replicated in all our secondary cities across the country. And obviously this can be scaled to the rest of Africa. So as I close, Rwanda has achieved these impressive results, but all of this would not have been possible if it hadn't been for all the partnerships that we've had with the development community, with the private sector from across the board. And I do want to encourage, as I end my remarks, to encourage more and more US firms that are attending this session that would like to have presence on the continent, that would like to be part of our journey, not just our journey as Rwanda, but the journey of Africa becoming an integrated digital economy, to really know that Rwanda is open and to receiving you. Rwanda is open to testing some of the solutions that you have there. And thanks to this governance and long-term vision, we know that these partnerships are going to be mutually beneficial. We are committed to continue expanding our efforts and partnerships, and we do invite you to join us on this journey. Thank you very much.